We're called neons, sinners plucked from hell to do God's dirty work. But I'm finding it hard to believe we're in heaven.
There are a number of things that a game, anime, movie, etc. can do that will instantly pique my interest. As someone exposed to the unbridled power that is Shadow the Hedgehog at a very impressionable young age of about 4 or 5, I've basically lived my entire life in that edgy preteen phase. 90s and early 2000s edge is simply an aesthetic that is in very short supply these days, and something I can only ever really get a decent hit out of every 5 years or so whenever something like a Devil May Cry releases. Here's hoping that when Vincent Valentine shows up in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, his writing feels like it spent 2 decades in the coffin with him. However, every so often I do receive a small gift from the heavens to keep me going between these big releases that are what I really want, and recently that has come in the form of Neon White. Neon White is a game that knows exactly what it wants to be and what its audience is, and God does it show. The specific vibe it gives off is a certain flavour of dubbed anime you could only really find in the 90s and early 2000s. From the setting, the tone, and the fact that Steve Blum voices the main character, it has a very Toonami-esque feel to it, with a little bit of Suda51 thrown in there in some aspects. You play as the titular Neon White, a recently dead hitman with a spell of amnesia who finds himself in heaven alongside multiple other sinners to participate in a demon-slaying contest to try and win themselves a year in paradise. All of the major players in the story consist of White's ex-comrades such as Neon Red, Yellow, and Violet, as well as several angels who all possess some very obvious but also very classic character tropes, meaning you'll definitely have a character that you like no matter what your favourite flavour is. The story is hardly anything avant-garde, but honestly, it wouldn't be on an episode of Kraftcore if it was. At least, probably not. But learning about the mysteries behind the competition, as well as slowly finding out more and more about White's past and what led up to this situation, still makes it compelling enough. The real selling points of the game, however, is its gameplay and the writing of general dialogue between characters. Starting with the gameplay, it's very Mirror's Edge meets something like Celeste, and then chopped up into little bite-sized time trials that never really go over 2 minutes. Taking your time is not something you'll be doing too much in this game, as it wants you to be as fast, flashy, and as efficient as possible, even on your first run of a stage. Something that I've seen put a lot of people off of Neon White from first glances at its trailers is its card system, where different guns are acquired by picking up their respective cards, but in reality it's really not what you'd expect. The cards for the most part are just an excuse to cut back on production costs by not having to render the model for each of the guns, but also to help convey to the player that these things are meant to be disposable. Each gun card has a primary function, which is, well, it's to shoot the gun, but it also has a secondary function which you can do by discarding it. These all being a variety of different traversal options. For example, the pistol will allow you to double jump, the sniper gives you a horizontal air dash, and the rocket launcher gives you access to a grappling hook. Being able to hold on to 2 different card types at a time, as well as up to 3 of each of those types, combined with the potential cards that might be hovering in the air along your path, results in a lot of situations where you'll simply be gracefully flying through the air, leaving a trail of dead demons behind you. The demons themselves are really not much of a threat. They do shoot projectiles at you at times, and some of them are more like insta-kill traps, but most of the time they're realistically just targets that you need to take out before the goal point opens up. Also, the game has a really generous and customizable auto-aim system that is very visible on screen, so despite your skill level or whether or not you're using keyboard and mouse or a controller, you'll still be able to find yourself pulling off those 360 pot shots for a window whilst you're sailing through the air. Despite technically being a first-person shooter, Neon White's goal is to make you feel as cool as possible over teaching you how to aim good. The game's real challenge is getting those stage times as low as possible so you can get those gold or even diamond ace medals. But luckily, Neon White has a number of things that it does to help players out who are struggling, whilst also trying to teach them how to have a good speedrunning mentality when approaching the levels. First off, the game will give you little bonus hints and assists depending on how well you've already done. So if you have a silver medal, you'll have a little replay ghost showing you the route you took on your current fastest time to sort of help you see if alternate routes are actually making you faster or not. And if you're able to get a gold medal, a little icon will appear somewhere in the level that will show you a different route to get to the goal that will be a lot quicker and help you get that ace rank. What's also really nice though, especially for people who are really struggling, is that just by simply beating the stage enough times, you will start to unlock these hints no matter what medal you get. As long as you keep on trying, the game will keep on trying to reward you in some way as well. And I think this is really important, as while not very many, the game does require you to have a certain number of gold medals to unlock each batch of stages as you go through it. My favourite of these hints, however, is simply the one that is unlocked after getting a bronze medal on a stage, which is under any time. This being the gifts that you can unlock. The gifts themselves don't necessarily help you beat a level quicker, but what they do is make you think about how you could use your cards more tactically, as some of these gifts are located in some pretty tricky places to get to, but while finding a way to get to them, you're inadvertently teaching yourself new ways to use the cards that might help you get to a goal faster than you thought you probably could. The extra and actually main incentive to nabbing these gifts is they actually allow you to progress down a social link style system with various characters to unlock fun little bonus dialogues with them, as well as a few gimmicky challenge levels as well. Stuff like Red's levels that have a ton of cards in them but expect you to get across really big gaps by using multiple discard abilities over and over. Or stuff like Violet's deadly obstacle courses that are kind of designed to kill you unless you do the exact right thing. The social link bonding events consist of both silly little miscellaneous dialogue as well as little flashbacks to explain what happened to the cast before they all died. The memories that you unlock aren't particularly amazing by themselves, but without them, I think the main story would definitely lose a bit of its luster. But the real star of these bonding events is definitely the dumb little fanservice-y dialogues, where the game rarely failed to get a grin or a smirk out of me at the very least. Now, a small heads up before I start singing the praises to this game's comedic writing. Comedy is a very hard thing to write, and in Neon White's case, it's definitely writing to a very specific demographic, and if you don't really fall in line with that, there's a very good chance that you might end up bouncing off this dialogue really hard. To sum up the protagonist in a single word, I would probably have to go with cringe.
Some crazy stuff.
Oh shit, like what?
You are my Sasuke, man. The darkness to my light.
Fuck, man, that's so crazy. Never mind, I'm not neon yellow.
See, in missions, White is a relentless killing machine, but in the day-to-day, he's a bumbling buffoon who flusters easily, can't make decisions for himself, and worst of all, he's a gamer. But personally, this is what makes him really enjoyable to me. Being cool is not enough anymore. You need to be a massive fucking loser if you really want to be cool. At least, that's what I think. So, while yes, Neon White is cringe, it's also free.
You neons are all the same. Always telling me what moronic imagery your pea-brains invented in an effort to comprehend us angels.
Okay. Alright.
Oh, you're a cat. You're a horse. You're
Be
a
not
sexy
afraid.
Statue of Liberty. How about a, hey, Mikey, how's your day, Mikey? You must work so hard, Mikey.
Excuse me, I'm here for my appointment. Hey, White, isn't it freaking crazy that John Cena is here in heaven giving us missions?
One mild gripe that I did have with the game is that there are these 3 boss levels, but they're all pretty similar to each other, and it's very clear that they're really not intended to be in the game's gameplay system, since you kind of switch back and forth between a ordinary level with the boss just taunting you as they fly about, and these sections where you enter a small arena area where you have to break the boss's shield before you can deal a little bit of damage to them. Damage that is honestly not all that useful or important, since you'll still have to reach the end of the stage before you can stun the boss long enough to actually deal enough damage to kill them, regardless of how much health you've dealt up to them at that point. Each time, the boss's health bar is actually pretty small, but you have to get through that shield first. And because of this, it means that that final area is the only time you really get to put in too much damage. So it doesn't matter if you get there with the boss having 80% health or 30% health, you're really only going to save an extra few seconds at most if you manage to actually deal some damage to them throughout the level. I think Neon White's much better quote-unquote boss levels lie in the last stage of each one of the batches that you unlock. With a game of this size and scope, it's fairly difficult to do things like set pieces, but Neon White definitely does try to do some interesting things with what it's got available. The game in general does try to just generally make you feel cool, but there are definitely some standout levels that really try to make you feel cool. And you can tell as you run through them, and certain card combinations and obstacles might be thrown your way that are just a lot more satisfying to go through the motions with than some of the other levels. My personal favourite being one where you start the level in front of a line of explosive trap demons that you must set off with your sword essentially as soon as the level begins, and then you have to race against the fuse that you've just lit before it blows up a platform at the end of the level that you need to use to reach the goal point. That one in of itself is pretty cool, but what I really like about it is that even if the fuse is lit on frame 1 of the level, it will not burn out in time for you to get that Diamond Ace rank, as the goal won't unlock until all of the demons in the level are killed. So in order to get that Diamond rank, you need to race ahead of the fuse extra early in the level, so then you can light it again further down the chain reaction to take out those last few traps quicker. The thing is if you do it too early, there is a chance that the chain reaction will still not be fast enough to open up the goal point in time to get that Diamond rank. But if you do it too late, then you have a very good chance of taking out that platform and not being able to reach the goal altogether. It's a super simple level idea in terms of production cost, but I think it does a really good job of making you feel like a badass more than the other levels. There's not really an awful lot more I can say about Neon White that the footage at least isn't showing already, unless I was to break down the plot bit by bit or something. Aesthetically, it's real nice. The music is not really my sort of thing, but it does fit very nicely, and I've heard lots of good things said about it from other people online, and I still found myself going, "Aim for the heavens!" during the opening stages as I played, so it must have at least gripped me a little bit. Oh, but one thing I will say is that the game's final batch of levels is such an honest-to-God power trip victory lap that it goes, "Hey, take this, it's the most powerful soul card ever and the ultimate traversal tool that isn't straight up flying," since flying is basically the most boring way you could move from place to place in a video game, but that's a discussion for another time. But either way, in light of Neon White's example of being short and sweet, I think I'll end this here, so, like and subscribe and whatever, and I don't know, I'll catch you on the flip side.